Let me just. Great. So thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce today the speaker of this PPCR talk. As you know, in PPCR, we really care for you and for your next step after doing the program or during the program. And we got many students in the program who are really working on and want to develop a residency in the United States. We know that many of our students are international medical graduates, and it's an honor for me to present to you today John Polanco, a PPCR student for 2018. He was a Scholar Award top student for more than 400 people. He did an amazing work, and also he was the best student in the advanced stacks workshop that we do in Boston in July. And besides that, all throughout PPCR and after graduating PPCR, he keep being a great leader and ambassador of all the IMGs, and also he has been working closely mentoring many of these people. I feel sometimes shy to look for John when I need help, when we're trying to connect people and do more network, so he can guide many of you. And I appreciate it. We just see who has the mic open. Okay, everything is fine. And again, John, he's really busy right now. He's at a third year residency in surgery in Behavioral Decanas. He's also a senior TA in our program in Group 4. And besides that, he did the Master of Public Health in Harvard TA Shan, and he graduated this year, actually. But he couldn't attend because he was also in the residency to his own graduation. He's a really busy person. He also came to our PPCR reunion that we got in July and also in May. So John, thank you once more for your time. I'll leave it to the group, and I'll be here in the background to help you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alma, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Some of you I know, some of you I've interacted with throughout my course through PPCR. But today, we'll kind of talk about what my pathway has been to what I like to call, or not what I like to call, what it is well known as someone who would like to become a surgeon scientist or a physician scientist. That's something that I strive to become. And let's talk about my research experience, what my pathway has been in my residency application, experiences, challenges, and opportunities. To set the rules for the house, I don't know how I will not be able to pay attention to the chat as I go through things. So I'll ask Alma to help me with that. And if there's any burning question, then we can stop amidst what we're doing and answer those questions. We're gonna touch upon various topics and we'll take it from there. All right, so as a background for me, I'm a physician and a researcher by training, as Alma was saying. I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, and after graduating medical school, I came into contact with PPCR, which was my door into the research world, and like my first formal education and like things that came from, I have a before and after I did the course. Not only because of the knowledge that I obtained from the course, but like the networking that I was able to create and the mentorship that I was able to establish through the course. And so what we're going to talk about, I already did the housekeeping. We're talking about my PPCR experience, IRI, which is where I came after doing PPCR. I did a formal research fellowship. And then while doing that formal research fellowship, I did my Master's of Public Health. And then I applied for general surgery residency after that. So PPCR, as you all know, we have a main course, and then we have some add-ons, which include the Advanced Statistical Workshop and the Research Proposal Writing Workshop, and of course, the Immersion course, the 5-day course that we usually complete in Brazil. It is a great foundation for clinical research methodology. You and many of you who are probably graduates from the program can know how useful the tools that we obtain here are in a real world scenario. It's very applicable, and you can start off with the knowledge that you obtain there. And I also have to give a shout out to the Advanced Statistical Workshop, because when I did my MPH, I actually referred back to the notes that I had from that Advanced Statistical Workshop to be able to kind of deepen my knowledge in one of the regression courses that I was taking. And this, I say this not because this is a scenario where I'm talking through PPCR, but everyone and anyone that has been in touch with me knows that I say that there is a before and after in my career for after PPCR, and it's basically altered the course of my professional life and basically shaped my future. And much of what I think of today, it's PPCR set the foundation for. We also have the program for teaching assistantship. We have 3 levels, TA 1, 2, and senior TA. I've been with the program after graduation for approximately 5 years, and really this will be my 3rd year of teaching senior teaching assistantship. After PPCR and during, well, not after, during my workshop time, I learned about the International Research Initiative, which encompasses basically a rigorous and comprehensive training program. And for many of you who are doing PPCR and are interested in like putting into practice all of the great things that you guys are learning, International Research Initiative is a great opportunity for you to take on. It provides possibility of either hands-on clinical, translational, or basic science research, and some formal research methodology training, career developing seminars, weekly meetings, and it is basically a 1-year commitment to the program and also to a PI or principal investigator. The application is what we call a perfect matching program, because you tell us the area of your interest and we try to match you to that area. Here are some guidance of what it is that you need to apply. And unfortunately, the application season for this year is already closed, but as I'm going to tell you later, based on my experience, have short-term plans and long-term plans, and just plan ahead. Even when I was in medical school, I had heard of PPCR, even if I was not in the position to do PPCR at the time. It was in my plans to do it at some point, just not that at that time. So if you're thinking that you want to advance your career from a research standpoint, and again, I don't have any financial association or any conflict of interest here to disclose. I'm just saying from a kind of like a research standpoint and the experience to put into practice what you know, and if you want to take that an extra step, I think International Research Initiative does a great job of being able to match you to your area of interest or future clinical practice. This was my class. I did International Research Initiative class of 2020, and all of these people that you see here, we're all classmates doing PPCR as well. When I arrived in IRI a couple months after finishing PPCR, I was matched to my lab of preference, which was a general surgery lab. I knew I wanted to do general surgery. And this is my PI here, Dr. Tara Kent, who's been wonderful. And the reason I put this slide here is that you have a PI, and this is the person that will guide you from a research standpoint, but you also need mentors. You're lucky if you're able to find your PI, your mentor, and I was lucky enough because I was able to find both of those things in my PI, but you also need peer mentors. And you see these 3 people here that are down here. Many of you probably know Dr. Manuel Castillo, who's amazing. These 3 people were also my peer mentors. These are people that I went to when I needed something, not only advice for the lab, but also advice for career or some other stuff. So, meaning that you, when like you're nourishing yourself, you need to surround yourself by people that are interested in your growth. So not you in your lifetime, you're going to have different mentors, multiple mentors. And you may have an index mentor that you like develop your plans with, but you can have like other people around you that are able to provide additional input to the decisions that you're making, because you're usually like in the center of it all. And sometimes when you're like just in the center of it, you're unable to see like the bigger picture. So that's why it's nice, and not nice, like I think necessary to surround yourself with other people from not like that are not as close to you. And then one thing that I will say, and I think that served me really well when I was a research fellow, is the concept of guided independence. I think that allowed me to, and one of the things that we have in PPCR that is of utmost importance is that we like students to develop critical thinking. And when you have guided independence, in my opinion, you're able to develop your own critical thinking, your own ideas, and then you struggle and you get out of the struggle by yourself. And if you can't, you look for help. But it's not in a kind of like, it's not that people do not necessarily need to hold your hands along the process, because I think, and as most of you graduates or those that are currently students know, our PPCR, we like people to create their own knowledge. And so that's kind of like the same concept would apply to in a research lab. And that's something that I really valued. And that's like that I got from this lab that I was part of, and I still am part of. As I will explain later during residency, I have a dedicated research time, and I will come back to my original lab as well. When I came to the lab, I had two main research branches, which were educational research and clinical research. In the educational portion of it, I mainly was focused on surgical education. And then a third branch, although not included here, and this is kind of like where I developed my interest, because as of like to the point where I was like in this lab, I was really interested in like the biostatistics, methodological development stuff, but there was something that I just like, I kept an open mind, and my PI had an interest in disparities. And I was like, what is this? So I also started doing some work in both disparities related to surgical education and disparities related to outcomes in a clinical scenario. Meaning, for example, patients who did have, why in the world would it be that just because of my ethnicity or my race, I would have differences in my access to health? I could not, like, that was something I was like, why? Like, that shouldn't be, like, that's not something that needs to be happening. And like, let's study this. Why not? Like, my PI guided me through this. And then the third portion of what I knew, like, I liked was like disparities work. So I kind of like had disparities here in the center, and then I could apply to both my educational interests, but also my clinical interests. And this since then has broadened even further from HPV to transplant surgery as well. So that kind of molded the idea of what my research interest and where my research pathway would go. And so that third box, the invisible box here that connected these two areas, led me to think, okay, I want something more. I want a form of training in that that would allow me to gather the basic concepts of public health and how to apply that, how I would be able to conduct appropriate disparities research, and also give me the tools not only to be able to produce quantitative research, but also how to mix quantitative research and qualitative research. So kind of like mixed methods research. And so that's the reason as to why I decided to apply during my first year of research fellowship for a Master's of Public Health. This was a discussion between me and my PI about what the best timing for this would be, given that I had in mind that I wanted to be a clinical surgeon as well. And so that's also something to keep in mind. Do you need to do it now before you start your residency? Can it wait? Where do you want it to fit in your career plan, the 5 year, the 3 years, the 10 years career plan? And that's something very important for you guys to have in mind. So comes Masters of Public Health. I did Masters of Public Health starting in 2020, and it all worked great because I finished my master's right a month before I was starting residency. And so as I was mentioning before, why did I do this? Because you might not need you may not feel like you need that kind of training to do the research that you want to do, and that's also fair. But for me, I think I felt I needed that formal training. And again, I will explain later to keep the open mind, because the things I learned in my MPH created the catapult for what I want to do down the road starting next year, for example. And so I said, I want more methodological skills, and an MPH can give me that. One thing I loved about it was the breadth of the knowledge I could obtain and the flexibility I have for the courses I wanted to do. I could take qualitative analysis courses, but I could take all the biostat courses and epidemiological courses I wanted. Public health foundations. As I mentioned, I needed more of that because I wanted to build part of my research career in disparities research, and I needed to understand what sociodemographic determinants of health were. What is the difference between disparities and like the different disparities, biases, institutional, multiple concepts that you're only exposed to when you're when you're doing foundational public health courses. Career outlook, because I was also interested not only being a technical surgeon, but also being a researcher and doing educational work, and also that it is a core thing for myself, and it's ingraining me that I want to be a physician, but also a scientist and a researcher. And so I was like, okay, location-wise, where am I going to go? I'm already in Boston. Do I only want to stay in Boston? Am I just doing this because I want to stay in Boston and do the MPH, or do I want to do this because I want to get the training? So that's the decision you need to make. Are you in a situation where you can move somewhere else, or are you in a situation where you can only apply to certain places because this is close to where you're to what you can do at that time? So for me, I worked at Harvard School of Public Health. I saw what fit what I wanted to do. For me, it was clinical effectiveness. And they have other options. Let's say that you would like to do a Master's of Science and you don't want to do any of the public health foundational courses because this is not within your career outlook or something that you would be interested in doing. So, so you basically can do a Master's of Science or a PhD or any other degree. So I'm not going to go very in depth because into this, but this is basically the main things that you got to consider for your application for the Masters of Public Health. You need a personal statement, basically I'll talk a bit more about it like in the next slide. But what I want to say about personal statement is, do not rehash your curriculum. The decision, like whomever is reading your application wants to know you, and the only way that they can know you without meeting you to decide if you need to come for an interview or something like that is through those words that you will put in that personal statement. Test scores. It depends on the program. Some program may require what is the GRE or other test scores. Some programs are geared towards basically positions, and they don't require the GRE. And you would do, for example, the USMLE steps and stuff like that instead. Letters of recommendation. Please, please, please choose a letter, not because of the name of the letter, but because the person who's writing the letter knows you and can speak up to the qualities of you as a person. And then something very important here is that you can still apply on this cycle. The applications usually close by December, and if this is something that interests you, you still have some time. And this is not only for the Harvard MPH, this also applies for other programs overall. and usually applications close by December, including the PhD programs. And there are some off-cycle programs such as some programs at Johns Hopkins, if someone is interested. In applications close up approximately like by May or March and stuff like that. So I did the program of clinical effectiveness, which was the first portion of the MPH. And it's basically a summer program. And for those that are not wanting to pursue a full degree, there's an option to do a non-degree where you just come do 6 weeks, 15 credits from the HSPH, and you get really intense training in multiple areas. It serves as a foundation for the biostatistical course of the full MPH, and it is a great opportunity. And then I wanted to put this in here, keep an open mind. Take advantage of all the opportunities. I developed new interests that I didn't know I had, and these new interests includes decision sciences, decision analysis. I didn't know I had an interest in that, and had I not ventured into taking a course that talked about it, I wouldn't have known that I had that interest. And that later came into something I integrated for the research I am currently conducting and stuff like that. New pathways, and then network. You don't know how networks, it's just amazing. I had published a paper a year before I started the MPH, and then I met someone who had the same, read my paper. The paper had been discussed in at their institution, and then we created a collaboration because they liked my idea, and then they had a new idea, and then a new idea came from that intersection of our thoughts. So network, you don't know what you will find at the other end of networking in this environment. So that was MPH, and then came residency application. And so residency application as an IMG, International Medical Graduates, and this initial slide was initially targeted for when we transitioned from having a normal kind of pathway to applying for residency, but then COVID hit. And then the usual requirement is that of steps 1, 2, CK, and CS. But given that COVID hit, CS went boom, it no longer exists. And so then USMLE step 2 CS administration got discontinued, and then something else happened, the virtual interviews, something very new. Nobody was like, how am I going to do stuff like that? And virtual interviews have come and are here to stay. And so here, as in residency, as I said, here in residency application, and also for your MPH application, personal statement can give a good idea of who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, what your core values are. So I would say take the opportunity. And I just wanted to put this up here for those who are preparing, or those who are still in the process and are have not delved into what it takes to be ECFMG certified, which is basically the paper or the certification that says that your credentials are valid for you to practice medicine in the United States. And for that, you either have to complete a pathway to substitute this, which is the USMLE Step 2 CS, or if you have already passed the component of Step 2 CS, you can still use it to be ECFMG certified. And so at the time of my application, I did something risky. I applied for residency without being ECFMG certified. And yes, programs will interview you without being ECFMG certified, but it is risky, and it will come at the cost of some programs not offering you an interview, even if they like you as an applicant, or even withdraw an interview if you're unable to provide the ECFMG certification by the time that by a deadline that they propose, which happened to me in more than one occasion during my application. This is just in general what the pathways entail. I'm not going to go much into it. So as things currently stand, virtual interviews are here and they're going to stay. And this is a two-way street. So it's kind of difficult because, for example, maybe here, I'm talking to you and maybe you see that I may be looking off to the side, not straight into the camera, and so on, so on. So it's a challenging thing, but also it's kind of like an interesting way to kind of like conduct interviews. So I would say like practice. I know it seems when I interviewed, and I have to say I felt it was awkward, but you just have to practice, get used to like this virtual interview scenario. And then I put here the concept of a two-way street, because it is not only the program evaluating you, it is you evaluating the program. And it's not that you, it's not so that it is the best place because this is the best place where you would get the best clinical training. It is also a place where you will be able to feel yourself, because it's going to be your family for the next, whatever specialty you choose. For me, it was for the next 7 years. Because I wanted a program that included research within its structure. For some, maybe 3 years if you have a shorter amount of time for training, or 5 years, and so on. At the time before, many people used to limit their applications based on the travel costs, but now it allows you to apply to a broader amount of a number of programs, because you don't have to travel. You can do this from the comodity of your house. So here, as I had mentioned here, am I the right fit? Are they the right fit? And is it all about matching? And I know as an IMG, we come with a maybe, or this is actually something that has been changing. And I will not generalize, but I would say that before it was all about matching regardless of where you were going to go. But remember that you're going to be there for a couple of years. So you need to choose carefully where you want to go. And so a couple of tips here. Personal statements, beware of the language that you use. This is sad, but I will have to say, because I did some research on not personal statements in particular, but MSPs, for those that know, medical students performance evaluations, which used to be dean's letters. And it appears that goal-oriented language is seen more positively evaluator or seen than relationship-oriented language. In theory, the perfect physician should be someone who is both goal-oriented or relationship-oriented. And if you want another way to describe this, agency versus communality. And many, unfortunately, many people are still being evaluated by how agentic their descriptions are, how goal-oriented, how and in theory, you need to have that portion of you that is communal, but that portion of you that is agentic, and you need to have a balance. However, as of now, the research that myself and in the lab of my PI and the group have been doing has demonstrated that mostly people that are described with agency and goal-oriented, and also prior research. So success in science, if you look for papers, if you do a literature search in PubMed, you're going to find that success in science is measured by how agentic you are, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that being agentic is a bad thing. I'm just saying that there should be a trade-off. As I mentioned before, this is not the place for you to talk about your CV. No. People will read your curriculum. In the personal statement, people want to get to know who you are, because this is all going to happen before they send you an interview. So they want to get a sense of who you are, and this is your time for you to tell them who you are. And then you need to have something organized. And again, this is not a writing class, but like provide an identifiable thesis in the introductory paragraph. And I will give an example of my personal statement, both for my residency application. Well, yeah, I had different teams for my MPH and residency application, but I will say I am a kite surfer. And that was the theme of my personal statement, how that equated to being a surgeon, and how that equated to the training, and how that equated to something that I would not let go, regardless of it being hard, and how hard it was at the beginning. Virtual interviews, again, something here just to, just in generally speaking, AAMC, the AAMC has still some tips for how to do virtual interviews. And this is not only for residency, but also like for if you're applying for a program, PhD and stuff like that, you would very likely need to interview. There will be behavioral questions, situational questions, and then the simple question, tell me about yourself, which is not as simple as you think. You can tell people a lot about yourself in very short sentences, and be very eloquent with just a very minimal amount of words. So I would recommend that you practice this. And then we talked about this, avoiding letters of recommendations that cannot provide insight into your character. For you to make your list of programs. So these are concepts that any of you that is applying for residency right now, or will apply, or has plans to apply, needs to know. Preliminary versus categorical residency. Preliminary means that you have a 1 year of the spot secured in a particular specialty. Categorical means that your full training is secured. Designated versus non-designated applies. It's a subcategory of the preliminary group. And this says, okay, I am preliminary in surgery, but the next year I am designated to go into radiology. Radiology being an advanced position. So even though you're preliminary for 1 year, you're already categorical into your specialty of choice. So that's designated. The other part being non-designated, what it is that you only have 1 year in that specialty, and you don't have anything else to look after that unless you get another spot to train. Then you have the different portions, which include university-based, but also mixture community-based, and they're the sole community-based. And I want to make a side note here, and this applies to my Latin American colleagues, and is that if you train here in the US, most countries, in Latin America, I don't know exactly which, but I know a couple of, my country, for example, and other countries that I've spoken with friends of, need you to have a university at the background of your training. And if you train in a completely community-based institution, you will not be able to convalidate your title if you choose to go back to your home country. And then immigration status, very important. Do you need visa sponsoring? If you need a J1 visa versus a work visa, this is sponsored by the ECFMG, and this is sponsored by your institution. And there are differences because you may be required to go back to your home country to be able to practice in the US posteriorly, or do a waiver within the US. Or by this, if you're on this visa, you could have other options, other immigrational options down the line. For you to make your program list, these are good tools, FREDA and Residency Explorer, based on your scores. You can like your STEP scores, your research, volunteer work, and then this can give you a percentage of people that have matched in such a program with your similar characteristics and so on. The $1 million question is, research necessary? Yes and no. It depends on who you ask. It depends on the position that you're going for. But research is necessary based on your academic endeavors. Of you wanting to become a physician scientist, of you wanting to do networking, and also some specialties require you to do more research than other for you to meet their minimal standards. Will a graduate degree make or break my application? And the answer is no, absolutely not. As we can see here, this reflects the basically matched data, like demonstrated that there are no differences in those who match and those who do not match based on a graduate degree, be it a PhD or any other degree. Would I do it all over again with doing my MPH? Absolutely. Even if it did not have an impact on my application. I want to take a moment to talk about social media. As this is like a virtual scenario kind of thing, virtual interview, you're unable to interact with your programs and so on in person. I think social media has taken a very big step, has become quite important. And so most programs won't be meeting the prospective applicant in person. And as much as it pains me to call this social media X, which I love their prior name as Twitter, it has become a source of invaluable information. I would recommend you to follow the programs, their official accounts. There are many recruitment activities that we can partake of during the recruitment process, interview process, get to know faculty, interact. And something that I would say, and take this with a grain of salt, not everyone may agree with this, treat your Twitter account as any other professional account. And for those applying to surgery, there is the Association for Program Directors in Surgery. That's a great resource where they post open positions, open opportunities, be it clinical or research positions, and so on. The reality of it all is that it is a long distance race. You're running, you're going to run. So, and this is probably going to be one of the hardest ones in your entire career. Do not burn out too early. You're not alone. Everyone is going through the same process when you start residency. So look for your niche, look for your family, be humble, be open to feedback. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. No matter how good you've been up until now, you're going to make mistakes. Learn from them, meditate on them, think of them, and then move on. It won't be the first time, it won't be the last time. Every day you will be faced with something different. And those are like I don't know if everyone here, and I don't want to generalize our physicians. I think we came into medicine partly because of the uncertainty of dealing with patients and the human physiology. There's nothing given when you're dealing with human physiology and pathology. So there's no way that you can predict everything that is going to happen. Be proactive. Don't be passive. When in doubt, ask. I know people want to be good, but you're dealing with patients. So when you have doubt, ask always. Never anchor. Always have some room, have the humility to think that whatever you are thinking is happening can be wrong. In summary here, and before I go through this slide, I just want to say my pathway through the US residency, I was a preliminary resident, and let me just go back to this slide. I was a preliminary resident in a non-designated position for my first year of training. I was a preliminary resident for a non-designated position for my second year of training. And thankfully, given the support of my mentors and a program that thought that I was worth training, and the effort of working consistency, I'm currently a categorical resident holding a third-year position. And given residency and my prior experiences with the MPH and all of that, I think that my next step is to do another graduate degree to continue my formal training. And here, in summary, have an idea of what you want your next step to be. Have a 3-year plan. Have an even shorter term plan. What is your 6-year plan? Then have a 1-year, 3-year, and then 10-year plan. Choose your mentors carefully, very carefully. Make sure that they're invested in your growth and not only in what you have to give them. If your mentor is your PI, but something even more important than that is choose your peers and your friends even more carefully. These are the people that have the greater influence on your day-to-day life, and this is very important. And also, it is not all about the academic excellence of the place that you're training at. It does play a big role in it, but are you a good fit to them? You're going to be training there for a while, so make sure that you are also a good fit for them. And just remember, there is never such there's not such a thing as a free lunch. If it looks too good to be free, it is not free. And this is someone that the prior director of the IRI taught me, because he was also my senior resident. And this is invaluable. Trust but verify. People, even if you trust the person that's telling you, verify. That will come invaluable, and that's the best advice that I've gotten for residency. And do not forget, enjoy the ride, because this is a long one. That's about it. So I'm happy to take any questions now.
Great. No, great lecture. And thank you, John, for all the suggestions and explaining all your trajectory and sharing with them your challenges and how you overcome them, also, or the process in your application for your different pathway, right? PPCR, the IRI, then the MPH and residency. So we got 3 questions that are really now for. The first one was Fernanda Gugushin, who is a PPCR alumni too. She used to be at TA with us. She's asking, I'm also applying without a certificate. What do you recommend in this case? Letter of intent? Does the letter of intent could increase the emphasis on research, or what should I say? That's the first one.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
So, Fernanda, so what I did was my strategy was to give a deadline of what I thought would be the downside to in my scenario, and I don't know what your scenario was, that when I applied, it had been the change from Step 2 CS into the pathways, and I did not have the opportunity to take Step 2 CS. And so I was depending on my country giving me a letter saying that I was a practicing physician, which I had not requested, and it usually takes a year to come back. So although I had an idea, I could not secure that it would happen by a certain time. And just to give you a sense of what ended up happening, I was able to be certified 2 days before the rank list was supposed to be sent. So that actually did affect my application significantly. But if you're able to provide a letter to say that you will have your certification within a certain amount of time, I think you will be fine. Most programs will actually reach to you if they have any concerns about you being certified. And if you have a program that you like a lot, which I did for a couple of programs, I send them a letter of interest or intent and explain my situation beforehand, just putting myself ahead of time.
Great, thank you, John. And then Fernanda Cristina, another person is asking, do you think that some residency programs might filter out someone who had a PhD before residency as an old graduate and dismiss them without reading the personal statement? Will a master's degree, as it takes less time than a PhD, be a better option?
So that's a kind of like a difficult question to answer, because I do not know what all the programs do, or what I know is like anecdotal information. But I will say that there is a trend to qualify people as old graduates after a certain amount of time, and some programs are very upfront about it. You can even find that in their residency website. They say, we do not consider applicants who have been out of practice for 5 years and so on. My suggestion is, if you're going to do a PhD before residency, or you've done that, is that if you do research at an institution, they may get to know you. And try to get, I don't know how that would work if you're not clinically active or do not have for example, a medical school behind you, like actively within a medical school for you to do a clerkship or do observership, but something to tell them that you can be clinically active and how you can be clinically active, and that you still have your clinical skills. So I would say, even though you might be doing a PhD after graduation, try to be as close as possible to doing some clinical work.
Great, thank you, John. Yeah, and I also want to add that when we got a big gap, the most important thing is that you can justify the gap. and you show that you have something, that you perform any activity while in that gap, that can make you stand out against the other applicants in the residency. So just try to defend your gap. What were you doing that you were not actually doing clinical work, but maybe any other research or publications, or working as a research fellow, or any other thing, opportunity that you might find in your own country, home country, or in US.
So, and also as you mentioned that, so the sad thing about it, like it's good when you are able to, and yeah, when you're past that screening process that they take you, you need to address the gap in both your interview and your personal statement. At least take up 2 lines to address that. The sad portion is to get the interview if you're screened. Unfortunately, some programs may do that if you're screened out because of your year of graduation. So that's where like having the connection, doing the networking may come in play, because that way you're able to they're able to see you for how hardworking you are, and not by the number of how long ago you graduated from medical school.
Great, exactly. And then we got another question from Fernanda saying, do you read your letters before submitting them, or you waive the right to see them?
I waive the right to see my letters. There is something called FERPA, and you can be in a lot of trouble if you waive the right to see them, and then you see your letters. Importantly, I think here is one of the moments when you have to have a glimpse of faith and trust your letter writers. And importantly, and if you don't waive the right to see the letter of recommendation, this decreases the reliability of your letter, because this means that, and I think the way to see this is that you need to have that small faith in whomever is writing it, because like if whomever is writing it would feel comfortable writing something negative about you, they would be able to do it. And so that's why it is good to waive the right to see them, and just know, like, just take the faith. If you've done the work, it's very unlikely that someone will write something negative about you without discussing it with you. So I would say FERPA is something really important to keep in mind. It's an act, and you waive the right to see that. Like, I would just suggest like waiving the right to see them for a residency application.
Yeah, it's true. And I want to add something there, Fernanda. Always waive it, because I got some friends that are program directors, and they said, if you don't waive the right, that means that you don't trust what they are writing for, and that people might say something that would affect you. So you always have to waive the right. And also, second recommendation for you, when you ask a writer, someone that you want them to write your letter, send an email or talk to them and say, hey, will you be willing to provide me, and you add that in the email, will you be willing to provide me a strong letter of recommendation to support my application? And you add that in the email. So they either said, yes, I feel confident that I will give you a strong letter, or no, actually no. Sometimes when we get asked here in PPCR, of course we do many times, when we agree, it's because we're going to write great things about the students. And because they deserve it, right? We know their work, their skills, either statistics or collaboration, group project leaders, leadership skills, and many others, right? Quantitative methods and many other things that they gain in PPCR. So we just write that letter when we believe the students deserve it and we agree to it. But for example, I got just one case in 11 years that I needed to say to the person, look, I can write the letter, it's okay. I'm gonna say that you're part of our program, that you are learning, that you attend the lectures, but sadly, your performing is not that good. So I cannot give you something really strong for you. And I advise the person, if you know someone else that can give you a stronger letter than us, because here the person wasn't participating that much, he had many absences in the lectures, so he was less than an average student. But we cannot lie in the letter. So I needed to say to him, look, maybe you can get a really strong letter with another writer, right? And it was my duty to tell him the truth. I cannot use that an average letter, and that won't do the work. When you ask for a writer, it has to be someone that knows it really well, that know your work, like what skills you have gained, and how you are different, and what makes you a great applicant for that residency program that you're looking for. So always ask and say that, are you willing to keep, or can you provide me a strong letter of recommendation for my application? You see, so always ask them. And you also feel when a mentor cares for you and is pushing you and challenge you to go over. So when you ask, most of the time you already know them, they will say yes, right? So give that, take that time to find that person that truly cares about your progress and your steps forward, okay? I'm sorry, just stepping in with that question. And then we got another question. Fernanda said that she's trying to do mock IVs with friends who are current residents, and any recommendation on that? Interviews.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's one of the things for you to do. They will be able, and I think I would actually recommend, if you had if you're close with someone, if they can ask someone that is not that close with you to do the interview for them, because sometimes I know for experience it feels awkward to have a friend of you interview and ask you those really situational questions, or it's just it's just a familiarity that you have with that person may make you feel more comfortable answering that question, and may be less similar to how the true scenario might be when you're interviewing with someone who you do not really know. So I would suggest that you ask if they have someone that they know that might be willing to kind of do a mock interviews. And I would say now, people for those interviewing into surgery, if you want to practice with me, I know my schedule is quiet, it's not really good, but we can find some time, so 15 minutes. I'm gonna put my email down there. You can email me, and we can do kind of 15 minutes practice with any most of you I don't know, and so we can practice what it would feel like for me to interview some of you, just to create the scenario with a stranger interviewing you and asking you, tell me about yourself. What things do you like? What will you do if you were faced with such and such scenario, and so on. So I'll put my email down there in case that you guys want to reach out.
Great, thank you, John. We appreciate that you're taking also the time with them privately to do this. Amazing, actually. And then Winston is asking, for those older graduates, he also said, congratulations on your journey. Insofar, I'm happy to see that in spite of the fact that it wasn't linear, it allowed you to achieve your career goals. For those older graduates who are considering doing a research fellowship, do you think that it can be done while pursuing or being enrolled in an advanced degree such as an MPH? Likewise, is it possible to pursue your MPH before or during the preliminary residency?
First question, yes. Absolutely. That's ideal because you are applying what you're learning in your lab. So absolutely, you could do a research fellowship while you're while you are enrolled in an advanced degree. Second question, since you're a preliminary year and you're just second question, the answer is no. The reason being that you're clinically active, and most degrees programs, I will say most, if not all degree programs, require you to be in residence with their degrees, unless you're doing them online. And I don't think that being a clinically active resident is compatible with you being able to manage the workload that you're having between residency and the program. You might be able to find an online program that may give you that flexibility. And sorry if I was too tangent with the no, but I don't think it's a feasible thing, particularly if you're on undesignated preliminary resident and you need to find a position for your next year, if that's something that you wish to pursue.
Great, thank you. And also it's true, we got some PPCR alumni who are doing MPH, and also they talk to the PI, so they do both activities. And what is happening is that since they will have to work in the lab, they do the MPH in 2 to 3 years, but that would depend with your PI. So you talk to them and you show, hey, I was approved in the MPH here. Am I allowed, or can you allow me to work also in the lab? So you talk to them and they agree, but it will take you longer to do the MPH because you won't be a full-time student in the MPH. So it will take 2 or 3 years. You can do that too with the university and talk to the PI who they always support you. And then Fernanda is saying, besides Lords, do your mentors reach out to program directors or institution directly to advocate for you? By example, by email or phone call?
I did not ask my PI to do that. I know some people have, but I did not or not PI or mentors. I didn't ask anyone to do that for me. I'm not sure if like maybe that's beneficial sometimes, but I don't have. I did not have that experience, so I cannot comment on it.
We have done when they ask us. We send an email. Sometimes they reply, sometimes they don't, but we do. We do when they ask, hey, can you please contact, and if the student or the TA is amazing, we go and do it, of course. So we send an email saying, no, we advocate for this person too. But yeah, we have done when they ask. And sometimes they reply, sometimes, but I remember that they already have the information and everything. Probably the most important thing is that you have also a network, right? People who can help you there, like inside the programs. And that's why sometimes doing the elective could help. I know that it's harder now because of the COVID, everything is stopped. But there are some still places that are doing, and they're even online, right? They are trying to help people. And so you can do elective online. It's a small observations, I mean. Yeah.
I think we missed a question for Marco Montoya.
Oh, Marco, wait. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You're
So,
right.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So let me read it out loud for everyone. So when you said that preliminary non-designated, it means that you have to apply to the match in the next cycle. So I would say that's a difficult question to answer. Multiple things to consider here. So if you apply for a preliminary year and you are on a J1 visa currently, in your preliminary PGY1, ECFMG is not allowing you to reapply for a PGY1 position through the match anymore. That used to be the case. You could repeat a year, but that's not the case anymore. Unless the program where you're training at makes a case that you need to do it because of remediation purposes, that you would have significant gain from repeating a year. That being said, when you're preliminary PGY1, you're able to obtain second year position or even a first year position via open positions. And that's where the website that I mentioned before, APDS, the Association of Program Directors in Surgery, comes in. They post all the available positions in surgery, for example, in that website. So although you may not need to apply through the match or may not be able to apply through the match, if you are on a J1 visa, because that's sponsored by ECFMG, you're still able to get a position through the APDS or through hearsay by people that say, hey, we have a position open. Do you want to apply or do you want it? Now, if you're someone who is on an H1B visa, someone who has a green card or someone who is a citizen in the United States, you're able to do whatever you like. You're able to reapply through the match. You're able to obtain an open position and so on. So that's the difference between you having a J1 visa, visa, an H1B visa, or being a green card holder or having a United States citizenship.
Great. Thank you, John, for explaining that. It's also really important, all the your visas and what are the correct process. You have to investigate all that and also what your program allows. For example, now they were saying that we got someone who was doing, he was a research fellow with a J1 in a lab in a hospital. And to have a J1 and do other activities like an MPH, you need to request permission because your J1 is attached to the employer, meaning the hospital. So in this case, he needed, and he actually enrolled in an MPH, but you need to ask permission to your first institution, the one that sponsors your visa. So you always have to do that in order to maintain everything legal, because that's one of the policies in J1. You are just attached to one institution. For example, other people, when they come to the lab and they ask, oh, if I go as a research fellow in the lab of a J1, can I work in other place besides the lab? And you cannot do that. You are attached to the lab, the sponsor or the employer or the hospital that sponsor your J1. You cannot have multiple jobs across institution, just one. Okay.
You made that point, and I want to make something important, make this clear here. You're on a J1 research scholar visa. If it's not the same as an alliant physician. An alliant physician always requires you to waiver to do a waiver for your residency training after the training. No, but you cannot do the waiver other than going back to your home country for 2 years or going to an underserved area here in the US and work for 3 years. There are other ways that you can do that, for example, through hardship and so on, but that's the most common portion. If you are on a J1 that is research only, there is research scholar, and your home country, and you're like in the skills list of your home country, and you have 2 years to be able to go back to your home country, that's waivable. You can do that by having a non-objection letter from your home country, because I thought that it did not apply to me. For example, it does not apply in my visa. I transitioned from J1 to an F1, then transitioned to another visa when I started residency, and then it does apply to me. And I was able to do a waiver based on my country, saying that they did not object for me to stay in the United States. So something important to keep in mind when choosing visas, when choosing to come to do research here as well, because your country, you may be subject to the 212B section of, I believe that's the name, if I'm not mistaken, 212B J1 visa clause. Let me just double check. Waiver, yeah, 212B waiver, or 212A actually. That is basically that you have to go back to your home country. So just a caveat to mention that.
Great, thank you, John. Amazing. That's also really important. Please make sure to review everything that they're for you, and then and Luis, I just saw your private message. I'm going to talk to you about that. Don't worry, okay? And then what's the other question? Sorry, I just because
Roberto, I think, has a question.
Yes, those step 3s increase your chances for more interviews.
I do not have an experience with whether it does. I do know, anecdotally speaking, if you for some reason have low step scores on your, well, now only step 2, before step 1 or step 2, if you have low step scores and you are able to obtain like to improve your score in step 3, that may be seen positively across in your application. And then the other relevance for those that are needing visas, and so you don't have to do it the way that I had to, because I had to prepare after match within a week to obtain to be able to get a certain visa, is if you have step 3, you're able to opt for a license in the state that you're practicing, and so you're able to apply for an H-1B visa. You're eligible to be sponsored for an H-1B visa if you have step 3 by the time you match.
Yes, that's the advantage that we got. Amazing, thank you. And that's it, guys. No other questions. You are free to open your mic too and talk directly to John. As I said, he's really nice and humble. He's here to help you out. And we cannot be more proud of all his achievements. And in PPCR, we always talk about him. Even in the workshop, we always remember him and everything. And we call him to come and talk to you. That's why he's invited.
And just so you are aware, this all started, me coming to Boston started with Alma, just so you all are aware.
Oh my God.
She introduced me to the person that then led me to know what IRI was and all of it. So I have a lot to thank Alma for, just so you all know.
No, it was, or you deserve it more than him. I mean, he was a wonderful student, just like you guys. So yes, no other questions. All good. Okay.
All right, everyone. You have a nice rest of the day. It's nice being here. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'm available. Although I may not get back to you as soon as I want to, I will get back to you eventually, okay? And if you think this is something urgent, just write urgent, like in the things, or like, so that I can pay attention to it, and I will get to it in a shorter amount of time, okay?
I can testify to that. Even for me, it's hard to get him.
So that's I'm on call, and the next day oh my God, I need to respond to Alma. So yeah, so feel free to email me, but put urgent if you need me, like ASAP, okay?
Great. So have a nice night, everyone. We have another wonderful PPCR talk next Tuesday about residency in neurology in US. with Dr. Fadi. He was also a PPCR alumni and a research fellow in Professor Fregni's lab in Spalding Neuromodulation Lab. That will happen Tuesday at 5 p.m. And have a nice weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Tomorrow we have office hours, as you know. And I'm going to see you next week. Bye-bye.